Hey everybody, I'm going to run through our event registration submission record, why we have this object, what it does, how to navigate to it, and how to properly use it. For some context, we originally, before having this object, submitted every single registration into Salesforce and did several calls into Salesforce based on what was part of the registration. So for example, when I would just fill out a very simple registration to an event, and I clicked on save, and then I want to go ahead and checked out. When I hit complete, what we were doing before was creating the attendee, trying to do the matching with an existing contact or lead. We would then create that subsequent invoice and relate it to the ticket. We would do all of our roll-ups, right? All of these were happening as that registration was processing. And anytime you have a process or a flow or a validation or anything interacting with our objects, sometimes there's an error that gets thrown because a custom process interrupted ours. And then what would happen is the attendee would actually see it here. Their information wouldn't save. They would get an error message that was in Salesforce language, which would cause confusion. They would have to reach out to the event organizer. Long story short, there were just a lot of problems with making all of these calls while that registration was submitting into Salesforce. So what we decided to do is we wanted to create an event registration submission object so that if the attendee filled out all of their information correctly, they should see nothing but a success message. Then we grab all of the information and we save it into this object. And what happens is that we just capture it in a JSON form. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate into one just for an example, where you can see all of my information from the registration is here. Then what happens is when it successfully saves, is we then trigger a process to start parsing out all of the data. So all of those calls that we were doing before individually, we now do once it was saved in Salesforce. So we create the attendee, do the duplication logic and relating it to a contact or a lead, and then we go ahead and do the invoicing and the line items and all of the roll-ups. This way, if something does fail, then it fails internally with Salesforce and nothing that the attendee sees or compromises their experience. To navigate to the event registration submission object, what you'll do is you'll go from the app launcher and you'll go ahead and type in events admin. And from here, as you can see on my screen already, we have the event registration submission tab. And here's where you'll see, regardless of event, anybody registering with one of our forms, all of their information is going to come here initially. So you'll see everything that is completed. But again, let's go ahead and look at this failed ERS record. So this tells me that I had an invalid email address on one of my forms. And it usually provides a pretty straightforward error message in terms of how to fix it. And once you understand what the issue is, and you can update either the form JSON or you fix your process from interrupting our registration submission process, then you can go ahead and reprocess the registration submission so that it creates an attendee and that attendee receives a confirmation email. This isn't our documentation, but to reprocess an ERS, you go ahead and you change the status from failed to process and then check the process checkbox and click save. It's as easy as that. We do have out of the box a workflow rule that you can use so that you receive notifications when an ERS submission fails. This is great so that in case anything happens, you're notified immediately. You can fix the problem and then reprocess that record so the attendee receives their confirmation email. And to navigate there, you're going to go ahead and select setup. In the quick find, you're going to go ahead and type in workflow rule. And then what you're going to do is you're going to select the Blackthorn events ERS failed. Again, by default, we do have this active, and the emails will go directly to the authorized user. So if you want to change that user, you can go into the workflow email alert action, click edit, and then either change the recipient for who should receive it, or you can add up to an additional 5 emails of who should receive this notification. Hope this was super helpful. Again, we're just providing another option for where all of the information comes that you can evaluate and see how things are going. If anything fails, you can reprocess and then keep moving on with your event registrations. Thank you.